The hall was packed, lights glaring like they were hunting for weakness, cameras sweeping across faces hungry for drama. A low murmur ran through the crowd as the debate began, the kind of sound that feels like a storm waiting to break. Ibrahim sat at the far end of the table, posture straight, calm as stone, his dark suit plain but sharp. He didn't look like a man ready to fight, but like someone who had already won something deeper. Then she walked in. Maxine, heels striking the floor like a warning, soaking in the cameras with that wide smile she wore like armor. She waved to the audience as if this was her stage, her world, and everyone else was just a guest. Her eyes found him, and that smile curved into something sharper. She leaned into the mic, voice cutting through the silence like glass breaking. This is what happens when we give a thug a microphone. The words slammed into the room. UT could feel it. A gasp rolled through the crowd like a wave. For a second, time didn't move. Ibrahim didn't blink. He didn't shift. His hands rested on the desk, steady as the earth, while her smirk grew as if she had landed the final blow. But then he spoke, quiet, measured, the kind of voice that didn't need to rise to be heard. Careful with your words. They echo farther than you think. The words didn't sound like a warning. They sounded like a truth carved in stone. And just like that, the air changed. The smile on her face held, but her eyes flickered just for a breath. The room didn't know it yet, but something had just shifted. The hall stayed tense after her words, but inside Ibrahim there was no anger, only a heavy silence that carried memories. As the cameras kept rolling, his mind pulled him back to a day long ago when he was just a boy standing on a street corner while police searched him for no reason. He could still hear his father's voice that day, telling him, "Don't fight with your fists, fight with your mind." That memory was stitched into his soul, and it rose now like a tide. He thought of the nights he studied by candlelight because power was cut off in his village, of the days he was mocked for dreaming too big. He remembered being told he didn't belong, that his accent made him less, that his skin made him dangerous. And now, here he was, on the biggest stage, facing someone who dressed her insults in fancy clothes but meant the same thing as those men on the street years ago. Around the room, whispers grew. A reporter leaned toward another and muttered, "This is going viral in minutes." The moderator shifted in his seat, unsure whether to step in. Maxine sipped her water, still wearing that smile. But Ibrahim saw the slight tremor in her fingers as the glass touched her lips. He stayed still, letting the weight of her words sit in the air like smoke. He didn't rush to speak because he knew truth never hurries. It waits. And while the cameras stared at him, the world outside was already waking up, ready to listen to the man they called a thug, without knowing that every scar in his life had prepared him for this very moment. The moderator cleared his throat and tried to move on, but the air was too heavy to carry his voice. Ibrahim leaned forward slowly, fingers curling around the microphone, and when he spoke, the sound wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was steady.com, and every word cut through the room like a blade no one saw coming. "You call me a thug for refusing to bow," he said, his eyes fixed on her, "yet your hands write laws that steal voices." The audience shifted, a low murmur rising like distant thunder. Cameras zoomed in, and for the first time, her smirk faltered. She blinked fast, forced her lips into a smile that felt too heavy for her face. Ibrahim didn't stop. "A thug breaks windows," he continued, his voice smooth, almost soft, but sharp enough to draw blood without leaving a scar. "You break lives with pens." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The moderator froze in his chair, his hand halfway to his notes. Somewhere in the back, a woman whispered, "Oh my God." Maxine tried to laugh, but it came out thin, hollow like glass about to crack. Her fingers twitched under the desk, tracing invisible lines across the polished wood. Sweat gathered at her hairline, a single bead sliding down past her temple. The silence after his words grew louder than any shouting match, stretching across the hall, pressing down like a weight no one could shake. She shifted in her seat, adjusted the mic, opened her mouth but nothing came out. Ibrahim leaned back, his face calm, untouched by the storm he had just unleashed. His voice came once more, softer this time, almost like a whisper meant for the soul. "Power dressed in insult is still weakness." The camera caught it, all her trembling hands, her eyes darting for a lifeline that wasn't there. And in that moment, under the glare of the lights, the woman who had called him a thug learned what real strength sounded like. The video tore through the internet like a storm. Within hours, hashtags with his name climbed to the top, and clips of those few quiet sentences filled every screen. People didn't just watch. They replayed it, shared it, wrote about it. Anger grew, not loud at first, but steady, a tide pulling down walls that had stood for years. In an empty office, Maxine sat alone. The room stripped bare, boxers stacked by the door, her nameplate face down inside one of them. She scrolled through old speeches on her phone, her own words echoing back like ghosts that wouldn't leave. Under each video, the comments burned. "You called him a thug. Look at yourself." Her fingers trembled as a voicemail played. It was her daughter's voice, small and heavy. "Mom, what did you say?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. She set the phone down and stared at the floor, where sunlight once fell but now felt cold. Across the city, Ibrahim sat by a hotel window, the lights below glowing like stars that had lost their shine. He didn't smile. There was no sense of victory, no fire of revenge, only the weight of words finally heard. His voice broke the silence, soft, almost like a prayer. Dignity isn't loud. It whispers until the world has no choice but to listen. Outside, rain started to fall. Somewhere, a campaign poster with her face peeled off a wall, the paper sagging under the drops before tearing loose and sinking into the gutter. And in another street, Ibrahim walked slowly, coat collar turned up against the wind, not in pride but in peace. Each step was quiet, steady, like the man himself, proof that the strongest voice isn't always the one that shouts, but the one that speaks and lets the silence do the rest.